The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
We got another busy one today, everybody. That's going to keep happening, and I don't even know why I keep saying it. But I do. Hello. What's happening? It's Thursday. It's Fantasy NBA Today. I am Dan Besbris at Dan Besbris on Twitter, DanBesbris. This is a Hoop Ball, hoop-ball.com, Hoop Ball Fantasy, and Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company presentation. Again, check all of that stuff out, hoop-ball.com. Go get yourself the early access to the Brewski 150. Go get yourself a draft guide. Do it with the coupon I'm going to be dropping a little bit later on in today's podcast. Also, check out HawaiianIsles.com for the Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. Full list of products. You can go to Amazon, search for Hawaiian Isles as well, and get your stuff there sent to your doorstep. Prime, they are HI Kona Coffee on Twitter. Coming up on today's podcast, we're going to be talking to my buddy Alex Rikleen, who is a fellow old curmudgeon, and we end up with very similar teams when we draft. We can't play in the same league. There's a few of these guys where we just can't play in the same league, or it's going to be a total mess. Going to be talking to Coach a little later on in the show, get our quick DFS hit for the week. A little quick shot straight into the, what is this? A vein here, my left arm, a little coach shot into my left arm. He has some news, I think, on his DFS show. We'll see what the hell that's all about. And breaking news, if there is any, which not much over the last day. A little bit of Kristaps Porzingis news that broke on Wednesday in the late morning, early afternoon that we're getting around to for this Thursday episode. Also wanted to take a moment here at the beginning of the podcast, as I did yesterday, to let you guys know, a reminder that we are in recruitment season here at Hoop Ball. This is a really big and important moment. If you have no interest at all, ever, in working in fantasy sports, you can just fast forward 2 minutes right now. If you have any interest at all in working in fantasy sports or covering a team, DFS, podcasting, whatever it might be, for Hoop Ball, listen very carefully. We are looking for multiple good people to add on to our giant snowball of awesome people here at Hoop Ball. We need blurbers, people to write the blurb feed, to learn the ropes on fantasy. You need to be able to write a little bit for that, but that's really the trainee spot here. That's where you can learn how to be a fantasy analyst. We need established writers, and believe it or not, we're actually recruiting for a paid position at Hoop Ball. At Dan Besbris, hit me up. It's the first time I think I've been able to do that on a podcast, so bug me on that one. We're looking for a morning and afternoon editor here at Hoop Ball. Paid spot, hit me. We're looking for podcasters on the fantasy side and the team coverage side. We're looking for folks who want to cover a team on a beat, whether, again, that's written or pod side. We're looking for people who can handle social media. We have a guy, but, we're always looking for more ideas on that front. We're looking for social. We're looking for graphic design. We're looking for coding. We're looking for everything out there. You don't have to be an expert. Come to us. We will grow together here at Hoop Ball as recruiting season rumbles along. Please do bug me. Again, Dan Besbris on Twitter. That's the place to find me. That's the place to hit me up. And we'll see if there's a spot for you here at the Hoob. I want to dive now straight into the fantasy stuff. I don't want to wait any longer. I know we do these openings that you guys hate so much. But that's the end of this one. So congratulations. You made it. We got my guy Alex on today's show. And I say that because I really like your first-round pick, and I haven't even looked at the rest of them yet. I mean, I looked at the rest of them. I actually like a lot of them. There are so many teams, and it's almost like an even split, where I look at them, I'm like, that's a team that I would have drafted. And then I look at another team, I'm like, no, that's not a team I would have drafted. And yours happens to be a team where all but like one guy in your first 9 picks are ones that I'm like, yep, that makes sense. So with that in mind, I'm going to try my best to play devil's advocate. But either way, welcome to the show. Alex Rikleen, he's back, baby. How you been?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Excited for the season.
Yeah, man, it just cannot get here soon enough. I know the offseason is technically like 1 week longer, but doesn't it feel more like a month longer? Maybe I'm just excited by all the player movement this year.
I don't know. I feel like it keeps coming earlier actually, but I think I do a little bit more football stuff than you do,
You
and
do.
it has moved earlier up in the football season. But I'm glad. I appreciate it moving up earlier. Basketball is better.
Let me ask you sort of a reductive question. Do you do anything for football?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so then
do.
you do more. Then you do more than I do. That was what I was going for there. Yeah, I don't know how you guys do multiple sports. My brain needs a respite for a couple of months because the basketball season's like 9 months long now.
Yeah. It's part of why I have no interest in baseball.
That's too much. 162 games, everybody, every day, too much. You can follow Alex on Twitter at Rikleen. That last letter is N as in Nancy. Rikleen, just the last name. Do so. He is the senior basketball writer at Roto Wire. You can see his stuff. It pops up all over the place. Yahoo, CBS, DK, etc. And a former math teacher, which, of course, as a fellow fan of numbers and nerd in general, that always is close to my heart. But let's talk about your team. That's what people are here to hear about. I like that now, and I was mentioning this, I did a hit with Matt Straub earlier today, and I have no idea exactly what order all of these are going to air in, so certainly you'll be tagged in all of it, and I'll let you know, and everybody else listening, I don't know what order these things are coming out in. It could be anything, but as I was recording them, basically, just through no real reason other than scheduling quirks, I ended up talking to almost everybody who had a top 5 pick right out of the chute, and we started, and I was like, do I need to even ask you about your first-round pick? And they all said no. And now we're getting into people like you, Straub. Who do I have coming up next on my list? It doesn't matter. But folks that are outside that top 6, really, where things start to get a little more interesting. You had the 9th pick, which is, I'll be honest, one of my least favorite this year because you're not close enough to the turn where you can not worry about who might not come back to you. You're just far enough from the top where the best of the best of the best are gone. You have all of the things to worry about, and you're not right in the middle. So, you do have a sort of a long span between picks. This is a tough spot, but I feel like you ended up in a pretty good position. And number one, you got Jimmy Butler, who's a guy I've actually been talking about as an underrated asset. Are you at all worried about the Thibodeau miles on his legs? That's my one question on Jimmy.
I mean, realistically, picks 7 through 24 are kind of a minefield.
Yeah.
And there is a ton of missed games risk from almost every single one of them. So, sure, I'm a little concerned about his legs, but I have more confidence in him than, Kyrie Irving, who went 8, or LeBron James, who went 12. I think that had Damian Lillard fallen to me, I would have taken him for certain. And for me, the question was Bradley Beal, who I feel a little bit more confident in his health and, situation independent. I actually like Beal better than Butler this year, but I was sort of trying something strategically. I've been in some mocks with some of these guys already, and I've noticed Kawhi Leonard falling to the second round, falling into that 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 range. And so I was trying to get greedy, and I really like the Butler-Kawhi pairing. It's very high risk, but very high reward. And so I went with Butler in part because of that hope that I would be able to come away with that pairing. And, didn't end up working out. Kawhi got taken before he got back to me, but, part of drafts is taking risks.
By Matt Smith, who actually ended up with Bradley Beal in the first round. So that was...
Right. Yeah, I loved his first 2 picks. So, I think that if we could be guaranteed even just 68 games from Kawhi Leonard, I would take him 8th or 7th. Probably 8th. But we're not guaranteed anything from anyone. But
Wow.
I do really, really like Jimmy Butler on Miami. And with everything a minefield, I do think he has the upside to finish in that 4 to 7 range. I think it's unlikely he finishes top 2 or 3, but I really see 4 to 7 as viable.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of the first time in like 3 years that he's been 100% in control of a team. There's no one else on Miami that's going to challenge him for authority besides the coaching staff, I guess. It's like Spoelstra and Jimmy Butler can fight all year, and then who the hell else is even on that team that has the clout to try to take some shots? I mean, are we talking about Dion Waiters? No.
No.
Nobody.
I mean, Justice Winslow could, be sort of relevant in terms of if he takes some assists away, with sort of a weird dynamic point guard, power forward-y role. But Jimmy Butler doesn't care about Justice Winslow. I'm not sure Jimmy Butler even knows Justice Winslow's name.
No.
And it might be that at the end of the year too. He's committed to not learning it. I mean, when Jimmy Butler was, alone in Chicago, he was a top 10 pick. When his usage rate was 24, 25, 26, he finished 8, 9, 10, 11. His usage rate fell off a cliff last year because he was on a good team. I'm sure he does respect Joel Embiid, if no one else. And now that he's going to have his own team, his usage rate's going to be as high as he wants. And a thing that I don't know that he gets enough credit for is he's one of the best free throw impact players in the game.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge, huge asset that he provides.
Massive. I like that we're getting into the nitty gritty on this tough part because a lot of folks are, and rightfully so, getting ready to sort of abandon ship if they get stuck in this range. But there are ways to play it. You mentioned Bradley Beal. I know he wasn't your pick, but before we even get to your second rounder, who, by the way, I really love this one as well. The end of season stuff, not a concern for you for Beal. I mean, he looks like a guy that feels like a safer play in this range, but you mentioned it. There's sort of minefields with everybody. In Roto, he seems like a really safe play. I think the common fear with him is, what if he misses my head-to-head playoffs? And I guess that's reasonable, but boy, if he gets to mid-70s to high 70s games before that in a Roto league, you got everything you could want out of him, right?
Oh, absolutely. And this was a Roto mock. When he plays the games doesn't really matter. And as we keep saying, and as will be said a million times by a million different experts over the next couple of months, this whole range is a minefield. Every single one of them is going to miss games. It's just a question of when and how many. And anyone who tells you that they know the answer to that is lying.
Yeah, basically. A little bit of a guessing game. All right, number 2 on your list. I picked 16. This is a guy that, oddly enough, just had his numbers adjusted down by Yahoo, and that's Andre Drummond, who...
Foolish.
Yeah, completely and utterly foolish. And you may have heard some of my rants, so I'm going to save you the trouble of hearing another one. But suffice it to say, the short version is, this is a guy that for the second half of last year was a top 5 player in the entire NBA. I mean, why is he going at 20 in a lot of drafts? I don't get it.
And I don't know if people fully appreciate, we really get into the numbers and we really play with this, and me especially coming from a math background, like the difficulty that being one of the worst free throw shooters in the league to end up with a top 20 ranking, despite that anchor pulling your metrics down, it is so monumental. And he's not only finished, 18 last year overall, 22 the year before overall, but as you said, top 4 the last 2 months, despite being one of the worst free throw impact players in the league. It's absolutely, absolutely incredible, his numbers and his production. Defensively, the only person who is more useful is Giannis. Maybe if Jaren Jackson has a most improved caliber season, he might rise to that level. Maybe if Anthony Davis stays healthy, but Anthony Davis is the number one pick. This is the middle of the second round, and I'm getting the second or third best defensive impact player on the board, who will probably lead the league in rebounds, doesn't hurt me in points. I mean, he just does so much in so many places that it was absolutely worth taking him.
Yeah, and to your own team's credit, you actually started with a guy who helps not all the way. There's basically no one in the league besides maybe James Harden that could do it himself, but cancel out Andre Drummond's free throw issues. Jimmy Butler knocks out about half of that. If you get another guy who's able to do similar free throw stuff to Butler in a middle round, you've basically eliminated the one issue with Andre Drummond. You can hit reset on that with your team, and you got all these unbelievable stats. I mean, like you said, it's so crazy for him to be able to be that high despite the free throw. That's how good he is in other categories. That's how positive his impact is in defensive stats and rebounding, which is just a crazy number. He was almost 16 a game last year. Yeah. And he scored more last year with 17 a game. That was kind of an unexpected miniature bonus.
Yeah, I mean, and I can't emphasize this enough. In head-to-head leagues, Andre Drummond should be a first-round pick. And realistically, he is an option at pick number 7 once Jokic is off the board. He is that good, and in a head-to-head league where you can just sort of say, all right, I took Drummond and I'm done with free throws, there is no downside. He's a pick for the turn in Roto leagues. He falls so much farther than he should.
Yeah, every single time. Third round, coming back the other way. This is where you had one of the longer breaks between picks we were talking about. Kristaps Porzingis towards the end of the round. He's a guy that I've talked about as being a little bit of a risky play, but to get him at the end of the third round, which is basically what you've done here, that removes some of the risk, and then you're looking at a guy that we've seen put up second round value, and you don't even really need him to play every game throughout the year. He becomes a much safer selection once you get to the end of this third round. You already had Drummond. This basically locks up blocks for you, doesn't it?
That was the goal, was to really give me a really, really solid basis in blocks, and to have another, and to because we're in Roto, I wanted to have a couple of big men, and this is something that will come up with two of my later picks. I wanted some big men who wouldn't hurt me and might even help me a little bit in free throws. He works there. I'm taking a risk on knees, so I'm hoping for good knee luck across the board with Porzingis and Butler. I'm hoping the NBA gets struck by a little knee health fairy this year. But every year they stretch the games out a little bit farther, so hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah, exactly. But he took that extra time to make sure he's at maximum health coming back. I mean, he was ready to play at the end of last year. There were a couple of reports, even when he was still on the Knicks before the trade, that he was ready to play, and the only question was when he would rejoin the team. So theoretically, he's in as good shape. His knees are in as good shape as they'll ever be. And yeah, the blocks are great. The rebounds are pretty good. Getting threes from a big is pretty good. And I felt like he did a good job of kind of balancing out Andre Drummond's few negatives.
I don't know that there's a whole lot to be said about pick number 4, because this guy is ranked between 40 and 44 every year since I think I was born.
That might be true.
Then DeMar DeRozan at 40. I mean, is there anything to add here, or should we just jump right over him because he's just going to be the 40-something ranked guy on a per-game basis? We basically know that already, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's safe. He doesn't hurt you anywhere.
Yeah. Ultra safe pick. I have no problem with ultra safe. Everybody knows that's how I draft anyway. Jamal Murray, this is an interesting one. Last year was a down season. His field goal percent took a little bit of a hit. I honestly, this is a guy where I feel like every year I'm off by one, because 2 years ago I thought, nah, he's not quite ready yet. And then he had this massive opportunity with the whole team dead, and he took advantage of it. And he did it with better percentages. And then last year I thought, all right, well, you know what? Maybe I was wrong about this guy. Maybe he can shoot. And then his field goal percent dipped back again to 43.5, and he was number 79 on a per-game basis. Who is the real Jamal Murray? I don't know what to make of this guy.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, I don't either. And the Denver Nuggets rotation is a cause for concern. Those are all very, very true things.
I think he'll get his minutes. I'm less concerned about the backups taking his time than I am just what kind of a shooter is he? Is he a 45-90 guy or is he a 43-85 guy? I just don't know. A big factor here is this is pick 57. This isn't pick 47 or 37, which is right
where you needed to go to get him last year. This was a range where I'm comfortable, in a range where I kind of feel like the pool has very much softened. I'm not in love with a lot of the options in this range, and so I wanted someone with upside, someone who would continue to help me rebuild my free throw percentage. And one thing that I was very confident in is I'm going to get 2 threes, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists from this guy.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know about the other stuff, but those I can bank.
Yeah, you were in a weird spot here, too, where just looking back at how the draft was going, there was a run of guys that I would have called safer or easier to predict guys that just sort of finished right in front of your Jamal Murray pick. Like Valanciunas and Bledsoes and Porters and Horford. And then right at this one, whatever we said this was, 57? Is that what the number was?
57, yeah.
It was like it officially moved into the next portion of the draft. It was kind of weird, actually, the way that ended up working out now looking back in retrospect a little bit. On the way back, though... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The last very relevant point is I didn't have a point guard, and at some point, point guards dry up.
They do, and you went back-to-back on point guards, and I really like this next one, too. Malcolm Brogdon, who, we already know he can play off the ball, so if there's any worry about Oladipo coming back, there shouldn't be. And he's going to be largely on the ball before Victor does return, whenever the hell that might be. This is a 50-40-90 guy. You're talking about bringing your free throw percent back. This is a pretty good place to start.
I'm so high on Malcolm Brogdon this year. I think that he's in a really good spot. His numbers might decline a little bit when Oladipo comes back, but I think that their games will be kind of complementary. I don't see Oladipo hurting him the same way Oladipo could hurt, TJ Warren or someone.
Right, or Jeremy Lamb or something like that.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm getting a fantastic value here. And it's also, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least point out, this is, I think, the only I've done a lot of mock drafts already, and I think this is the only one where I haven't got Brook Lopez, who went literally the pick before me.
Jonas!
Yeah. So that was a little disappointing, but it's mock drafts, and I knew when I passed on Lopez in the 5th round that this is a betting game, one of the things that you should do in mocks, and I tweeted this as soon as I saw that someone else had taken Lopez and I didn't get him, was, I'm higher than the market on Brook Lopez. I was picking him in the 3rd and 4th round in a lot of these drafts, and then I said, I keep getting him. Why don't I let him go and see what the rest of the draft does with him? And I did that in a couple of drafts, and he kept falling to the 6th round. And one draft, I even got him in the 7th.
Wow.
And so, while as much as I would have loved to have gotten him, this has been a really good learning experience for me that I need to stop taking him in the 3rd round, even though I think I have him 26th on my board, 27th, 28th. Sorry, I have him 28th on my big board, which is a lot higher than most people have him, but it was a good learning experience for me to see, okay, 5th round, I do need to get him if I really need him.
Oh, 100% agree on that point. I even did a show about a month ago where I talked about how I use mock drafts, and generally, I use them by looking at other people's mock drafts. I don't care about, like, where am I able to get a guy. I want to know where he's going if I don't take him. Now, you can't really do that in an industry pro mock because you'll look like a buffoon when everybody's team is better and everybody's better than you. But in general mock drafts, or I love it when I have other people at Hoopball that just send me their results and I can talk about it on the pod, or I can just look over this stuff, knowing where these guys are going in relation to their ADP, their pre-ranks. And it matters where you're doing the draft too, right? Because whatever Fantrax has him ranked, people are going to scroll down their board, one mouse wheel click at a time, or phone click, or whatever it happens to be. And it's going to influence when these guys are going. So like you said, it's a little bit of a betting game. And you're learning, as we all do, in every single mock draft, exactly how much value can I get out of my guy? How far can I let him go before I'm starting to play with fire a little bit? And Jonas Nader got you in this one. But in general, like, an industry mock draft is probably going to be the spot where guys go earlier than you'd expect anyway, because there is some measure of consensus, maybe not as much this year with the amount of player movement, but I love the look away mock draft. That's my favorite. Just
one last thing on Brogdon, the guy who I actually did take,
right.
who I wanted that guard depth. I loved his shooting percentages and how they helped to balance. Jimmy Butler's a bad field goal shooter, and I needed to bring back that up. Jamal Murray, we already talked about. There have been a couple of people who eventually became all-star and even all-pro level guards, not point guards, not power forwards, small shooting guard, small forward, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard, who their career slope kind of looked a lot like Malcolm Brogdon's has been so far. Now, that's not to say that Malcolm Brogdon will become a top 15 player in this league, but Jimmy Butler and Kawhi Leonard, both of them started, their first year they were barely in the fantasy relevance. Their second year they finished, a bit higher in the 90-100 range. Their third year they elevated a bit from there. This is a pattern we've seen. And so I am not saying I see Malcolm Brogdon as the next top 20 guy. I cannot predict that. I like his talent, but who knows? But this is a trajectory that has happened before.
And it's also worth pointing out, there's sort of two things to finish this discussion on the same guy. Very few guys in the NBA where when you look at them, you're like, yes, I want this guy unequivocally doing more. So any opportunity he has to do a tiny bit more in anything is going to be a massive boon because he's good at both percentages, low turnovers, assists, rebounds, points, all that stuff would just come up, and there really isn't a whole lot of bad that would creep in. And then the other note is, there just aren't that many guys that are positive impact percentage guys in both after you get outside the top 25. Most of those guys are up high.
Mm-hmm. And there aren't a lot of people who have the chance to provide 18 to 20 points per game outside the top 30 or 40. And that's very much within range. At least until Oladipo comes back, I would be surprised if Brogdon wasn't scoring 18.
Well, now I have to ask you, Alex, who was your next pick?
So my next pick harkens back, we can get caught up in our own sort of cute tricks that worked once. And I won a lot of leagues the year that Russell Westbrook just came back early from injury.
Oh, right. Yeah, he was going to miss like 4 weeks, and then he was back after one or something like that, right?
I think he literally missed 1 or 2 games, and people were saying, best case he's on the court at Christmas, maybe a little bit later. And the reality was we didn't know, and we didn't really know the severity. But there wasn't anything over the top concerning about the injury. And I won a lot of leagues because I just was willing to take Westbrook in that 50 to 60 range when other people weren't, and I got a top 10 guy. I think that this injury is a little bit potentially at least more serious than what Westbrook had. It's a totally different kind of injury in general. I think this one's a little bit more muscular, whereas Russell's was a little bit more ligament and bony. They're not the same situation. But we really don't know, and there is a legitimate chance that Oladipo's back before Thanksgiving, and I get, 60 games of a top 20 player in what round are we in? The 7th round?
Yes. Pick 81.
Yeah. Pick 81 in the 7th round. I'll take that risk. And, know the quality of your competition. This is an analyst mock draft. We're all people who spend a lot of time doing this. I'm not going to win this league without taking a couple of risks that work out for the better.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why my team would definitely not win this league, because I took almost
you might
none.
Finish respectably, but if you don't, it depends on what your goal is. And, we're all in leagues where our goal is not to be embarrassed. You and I do this. This is our job, and when we're in leagues with our friends, sometimes the goal is just not to be embarrassed. We want to make the playoffs every year, and we don't want our friends to be able to say, aren't you supposed to be good at this? That's the goal.
You're describing high school very accurately right there. Just float through. Try not to be embarrassed for 4 years.
Right.
You're totally right.
If you're trying to win, sometimes you got to, especially in a harder league, you got to take those risks.
Now, I am petrified of taking injured guys to start the year because of the possibility of the opposite. Where you do have a little bit of a buffer here is that the settings on this league were 82 game limit at each spot. So there's a games cap set, and it wasn't a high one. It was just a standard season game cap. So the bench is less important. And if he misses an extra 15 to 20 games or whatever it is, you only really need 12 guys to fill up that number. So you're in pretty good shape because the waiver wire usually has dudes. Yep. And it covers you a little bit. If the games cap was 90, I think it'd be tougher, because then you're eating up a guy that may or may not play for a while. And in a head-to-head league, the argument is kind of the opposite, where you just have to stay afloat, because then you get a guy that could give you a push into the playoffs and through them. That, in my mind, those are sort of like the two situations where you could do it and it could work, but a high games cap Roto league is one where I think I'd probably shy away.
Can we pause this for a sec? I have something important to say. You like when I go on a little bit of a rant.
Wait, do you actually want me to pause the recording, or just the discussion we're having?
This discussion.
I
have to make a comment on what you just said.
Okay, I was about ready to pause the actual recording. No, recording shall continue.
Guys, listeners, people, fantasy landscape, universe at large. If you're only in a fantasy league because it's kind of one of the final threads keeping you in contact with your friends who you otherwise only see at weddings or maybe every 2 or 3 years, great. Do what works for you. No shame. Enjoy your leagues. If you are in a league that is relatively competitive and you don't have a games max, what on earth are you doing with your life?
Yeah. Oh God.
Make better decisions. Would you play a game of baseball where one team got 10 innings at bat and the other got 9? Would you play a game of basketball where one team got to use the 3-point line for the NBA and one team got to use the 3-point line for college? Would you play fantasy football where one team got an extra starting slot? You wouldn't do these things.
Oh man.
Play with the games max. It's a better game. It's the only logical, sensible way to play a competitive league. If you're not in this for the competitiveness, if you guys are just NBA fans and you're casual and you want to keep things easy, by all means, do what works. This is supposed to be fun. But if you are in a competitive league and you don't have a games max, fix your life.
Yeah.
Make better decisions.
I don't know, man. Was that I might need the listeners' approval. Was that better or worse than the Dennis Smith Jr. rant of 2018? That was a good one.
Man.
You set a high bar last year.
I DM'd you this last week.
Yeah.
To tell the listeners, I was in theoretically an analyst mock draft, although someone's about to get fired from an analyst job. I'm going to write their boss a sternly worded letter. Someone drafted DSJ.
Oh boy,
very disappointed with their decisions.
I get a visceral reaction from that one. All right, number 80, number 88, Enes Kanter. You were talking about big men with good percentages. This is one of them.
Yep, that exactly. I love his rebounding. I've done a good job so far of picking players who are good in points. He's the first player that I've picked who really hurts me defensively. Defense isn't exactly Jamal Murray's strength, but he'll probably get me roughly 1 steal a game. Enes Kanter is pretty much a 0 defensively, but I've got enough strength there, especially if Oladipo comes back early, where I can take a 0 in the 8th round and still have one of the best defensive teams. And love the percentages, and I'll get a double-double every night, and there's no one on the roster to take his minutes.
Nope. And you actually followed that up with another power forward center who does more on the defensive side and less on the offensive, and that's Larry Nance Jr., who quietly had a fantastic per-game mark last season. People keep trying to tell me that, like, whatever Cleveland's doing this year is going to hurt Larry Nance's playing time and whatever. I'm not. I don't know. I mean, he was number 54 in 9-cat when he was on the floor last year. I'm not super worried about Ante Zizic and Tristan Thompson. I like this pick a lot, and he gets you a bunch of steals and blocks and rebounds and and field goal percent. There's a lot to like about Larry Nance. Yeah,
I don't understand the fantasy community's reluctance to accept Larry Nance for what he is. It's still early. Not all of the people who submit their rankings to Fantasy Pros expert consensus ratings have done so. But I was checking just before the pod to see what was going on, and I'm apparently 11 spots above consensus on Larry Nance, and I have him at 66th, which is worse than he finished last year.
Yeah.
I have him arbitrarily downgraded for no good reason, and
you got him at 105 here,
11 points ahead of 11 spots ahead of everyone else, and in an actual draft I got him at pick 105. The people in this draft are too good. They made a mistake.
I will say he was a guy that I was eyeing there 3 picks before you, but then I looked at my team, realized I had Jokic, Aldridge, Love, and Steven Adams already, and thought, do I really need a 5th center on my team? And I ended up passing on him there. So it was close to being out of your grasp, but not quite.
Yeah. I don't deserve him at that point. He should have been gone, but I was happy to take him. He's a great pick.
Deserve, take, whatever. A rookie. You got a couple of rookies here. I'm going to lump them together, and then we'll talk about the non-rookie in between them. Rui Hachimura and Kobe White were your 10th and 12th round picks. I have readily admitted multiple times that I know nothing about rookies coming into the NBA because I pretty much don't look at them unless they're a rookie big man. Those guys can sort of escape a lot of the issues that other ones have, but also, Washington is terrible and someone's going to have to play. So sell me on some rookies here, Alex. The floor is yours.
So I am team never rookie.
I know you and I generally see eye to eye on that one.
Which to me, I define as under no circumstances will I use a top 100 pick to draft a rookie ever. This year, I might maybe violate that if Zion Williamson falls into the mid-late 3rd round, but realistically, that's probably not going to happen that often.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research on this. You can go check out my articles. Pretty much, we just get too excited and we overdraft them. And 9 times out of 10, even the rookies who have good seasons and end up being worth being on a roster aren't worth what you paid for them at ADP, unless you're talking about the rookies who went after pick 100. Once you're dealing with these picks where realistically you're probably going to be dropping these guys anyways. Mm-hmm. And so that's sort of what I'm doing here, both with Kobe White and with Rui Hachimura. With Hachimura, I love the fact that there are no good players on the Wizards, and he is, he really rivals Bradley Beal in terms of marketability on that team. I don't know how many people are still getting into the season. I don't know how many people know this. He's Japanese, and he is not to like be the meme. He's huge in Japan. He has he has
no, but it's true. It's true. What you're saying is correct.
Yeah, at Summer League, there was a bigger group around him than any rookie that I saw other than Zion Williamson in terms of just like the media scrum after a game. And most of the people in that scrum weren't speaking English. But he is a huge, huge source of marketability for the Wizards team. And this is a team that doesn't have a lot to sell this year. So they are going to give him every opportunity. And I think he's a decent player capable of putting up good stats. I'm happy to pick him up with a pick that I'm probably going to end up dropping anyways and try to just jump ahead of the waiver wire on that one.
What about the Kobe White one?
It's sort of the same idea of I'm not 100% sure which rookies are going to have good seasons, but there is a decent chance that he takes the starter job fairly quickly. You know, the Bulls start 0-4 and he plays pretty well. He could be above 25 minutes very fast. And if that happens, I think that he could put up some good raw totals. I think he's actually going to be an efficiency problem, but it was my last pick of the draft. I'm trying to beat the waiver wire. I'm not picking. It's pick 136. I'm not picking the 136th person on the big board.
No, it doesn't work that way.
You know, I think Thaddeus Young was. I doubt he got drafted.
Dad.
Did you take him?
I don't think I did. When things got out of hand late in the draft room, I just started getting everything done. But yes, I almost drafted him as just sort of like the honorary last round pick.
Yeah.
But then as you saw, the last round didn't happen, so I just put DeMarcus Cousins on all 12 teams.
Which I think was a stroke of genius on your part.
Thank you very much.
But yeah, I mean, you know, Thad Young, friend of the show, I have him at 131st overall. I have him ahead of Kobe White, but I expect to drop that spot. So let me try to beat the rush if there is one.
Yeah, it's a what the hell pick. The one in between those two guys, Cedi Osman. Is this the year we see some consistency out of him? Maybe.
Heck if I know. But I don't know who's going to take his minutes away. That's for sure. The Cavaliers are bad, and small forward is probably their worst position. So according to RotoWire, his backup is a guy named Dylan Windler.
Yeah, I think that's made up.
I'm not sure I've ever heard of. He went to Belmont, which, you know, I think, is this a real person?
I think that dude did my taxes last year.
He was drafted in the first round. I don't even remember this human existing.
You can't put this team no rookie on a podcast together. This is ending poorly for us. Yeah, I have no idea. I mean, you know, with Osman, the thing that bugged me last year was that his field goal percent went straight down into the toilet as he started to have to do more. You hope that could rebound a little bit, and if it does, points could come with it. Mm-hmm. In any event. And that's your squad. Not bad, my good man. Not bad indeed. I think my favorite, if I had to pick one favorite, is probably Andre Drummond, and it's weird to pick a second-round guy, but, I mean, he's so good, and nobody trusts him at all.
Yeah. And, I mean, and realistically, the rest of the draft was dictated by taking him there. If I hadn't taken him there, everything else would have gone differently. You know, I was trying to build around the things that he provided and the things that he didn't. And this is a different team than I've gotten in a lot of my mocks. But a lot of that was adapting to, all right, I got Jimmy Butler and Andre Drummond. These are two guys who I really like. Let me try to do the best that I can with them. You know, usually I end up with Al Horford. Usually I end up with Kelly Oubre. Trying to look through this list of who I usually get. Usually I end up with Justice Winslow. I've actually been taking Derrick Rose a lot as sort of a, you know, hey, what if he ends up being the starting point guard? What if he's actually going to be one of these he's in his 30s now. He's no longer going to be a superstar, but what if he's got 4 years as a stable veteran who provides 18 points and good field goal percentage and okay assists? That's within his range of outcomes. So there are a couple of guys who I really like and have gotten a lot of who I didn't draft, but that was because I was reacting to Drummond, who is a force and is good enough to build your team around.
Yeah, and looking at the picks you made around him, we already talked about Jimmy Butler, DeMar DeRozan, also a severe positive in free throw percent. Jamal Murray, big positive in free throw. Malcolm Brogdon, big positive in free throw. You basically, and then Porzingis is sort of not a negative in that category.
Right.
Same with Enes Kanter. You basically sandwich Drummond around 5 or 6 guys that wipe out his negative while also providing some of their own stats as well. So I'm not very good at just glancing at a team and seeing what it might be good or bad in, but it does look like your team's going to be pretty good on the defensive categories. Maybe threes?
I think I tried to do well in threes. I tried to do well in defense, threes, and depending on how
rebounds. I guess
Hachimura
rebounds.
And Kanter turn out, rebounds.
Yeah. Alex, thanks a bunch, my man. I think that takes us to the end here.
Thanks for having me.
All of a sudden, we just popped up. Everybody, when this does air, and I haven't decided on the exact date of everything because I got pod hits flying out of my brain right now. I'm going to try to remember to get a poll going, but if I don't remember to, someone can do it for me. Was today's rant better or worse than last year's Dennis Smith Jr.? I'm not gonna corrupt the results here with my vote. Alex Rikleen, man, it's really good to have you on, man. Senior basketball writer at Roto Wire, at Rikleen on Twitter, Rikleen. As I say with everyone, have I ruined this experience for you, or can I get you back?
No, I'd love to be back whenever you can.
It's nice of you to say. I know the truth is this was horrible, but we'll that's fine for you to gloss over that. Thank you again, my good man. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Might as well do the coupon code right in the middle of the podcast today, since oftentimes we wait until the very last moment. Today's coupon code is Alex. I was thinking about doing Rikleen, but that's when you guys would actually have to spell something. Alex is the coupon code. ALEX. Very easy. You get $3 off any product over at hoop-ball.com. That includes the draft guide, the early bird B150 access, the pro package, the Game Time Premium full season membership, and of course the Champions Pack. We have 5 things for sale, and coupon code ALEX will get you $3 off of any of those items. Big thank you, as always, to our buddies over at mybookie.ag. Please do check them out if you're going to be following with us here as we place our wagers, and that's coming up. We've talked about futures betting right now, but we're going to be getting into the actual game stuff right from basically the opening tip, so that's less than 3 weeks away. Do it with us at mybookie.ag. I would not be telling you guys to join us over there if they weren't the best. They care about us. I keep stressing that. We went through and did it all. We moved our money over here at Hoopball, put our money where our mouth is, opened up accounts with promo code TODAY, TODAY. They matched our deposit bonus. They explained how the rollover works. Join now. They will match your deposit as well, up to $1,000. You can play on the NFL while you're waiting for the NBA. They've got parlays. They've got in-game wagers. They've got fantasy wagers you can make on the NFL. They're the best in the business. Where you bet is just as, if not more important than who you're betting on. Go to mybookie.ag today. Again, promo code is the word TODAY, TODAY. Open up that account, make the deposit, and then play with us here as we get through our gambling thoughts this season. Play, win, get paid at mybookie.ag. All right, guys, if you need a little energy in your life, I've got the solution. Well, I know, Coach, that folks on my side, what we call ourselves the full seasonies, we still have a little bit of time left, but you don't. You got a DFS card coming up this week.
How about that, man? Let's go. Let's make some money.
Also, hello. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Dan. How are you, buddy?
I'm getting along. As I've said on many podcasts, I'm just baseline sleepy, but otherwise everything is A-okay. How's everything going on the DFS side? How's the pod going? How's my guy Apatria? You guys are really you're coming down the chute. You've got your last. Let me make sure I'm getting this right here. You can correct me. You've got your last weekly kind of preseason breakdown show coming out, and then is the first DFS card Friday?
It is. Can you believe that?
No, I can't.
I know it. Yes. So today, Thursday, we have our last show of the preview for the preseason, where we're going to go over the last two divisions, the Pacific and the Southwest. So it's Golden State, Clippers, Lakers, Suns, Kings, Dallas, Houston, Memphis, New Orleans, and the Spurs. So we're going to go through all of them and go through how, what's taken place in the offseason regarding trades, player movement, and how it's going to affect DFS directly. So that'll be our final wrap-up show. And then the next day, Friday, is there's a one-game contest on DraftKings. And then Saturday, there's a two-game contest on both DraftKings and FanDuel. So it's off and running. And then after that, there's 4 or 5 preseason games pretty much every day. So we've been talking about it with our listeners on every show in this preseason time that this is a good time to make money. There's 3 full weeks of preseason. And for those that do their homework and listen in to all of the inside skinny on who's going to play and, because it's all about minutes equal money for preseason, especially because a lot of guys sit. There's money to be made in these contests, man. Get a nice fat bankroll for the start of the season on October 22nd.
Coach is on Twitter, by the way, at Joe Sarvadi, Joe Sarvadi. I have to admit, you've got me kind of excited about DFS, which is not a feeling I'm familiar with, because I know people that listen to this show, they know I'm a little bit of a degenerate on the gambling side. The first part of the year is when we use the term, it's a soft line. It's a soft line because nobody knows anything at that point. So if you're prepared, you can bet into a soft line, and you've told me already that DFS is the same way. These prices are all goofed up. They're soft prices. You and Mike have been getting ready for this moment for months. I feel more inclined to just follow you guys blindly in the preseason than I do even in the regular season. Am I crazy?
Well, I think there's a lot to be said about that. I can tell you for the last 4 seasons, I've made a real strong profit in the preseason and in the first 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season until all of the sites adjust pricing. And, only DraftKings and FanDuel offer preseason contests. So the next 3 weeks will just be those 2 sites. So their pricing is going to be getting set up. And then Fantasy Draft, our presenting sponsor, and also Yahoo don't start contests until the beginning of the season, which is 3 weeks, October 22nd. So they'll take a while to get adjusted. So if you ride the wave, like you just said, of using, some of our information that we've been talking about, we've also even had done some pre-pricing guesstimations of what the lines were going to be when they came out, which they are up on DraftKings and FanDuel. And that gives us a big edge. And I'll tell you right now, Dan, and, I guess this is as great a time as any to announce, but we will be doing, if I can do the honors of announcing it, we will be doing a daily DFS Hoop Ball show, and I'm ecstatic about it. It's going to be presented by Fantasy Draft, and it will start this Friday with that first contest. How about, exciting stuff, man.
So this is same show feed that people are already following, right? So this will be DFS Today, and it's going from weekly to daily?
That is exactly right. We're going to go roll right into a daily show.
You're going Monday to Friday?
We're going 7 days a week.
No, you animal.
We are. We're a little bit intense on this side, but there's no rest when you're trying to make some money.
That's true. Games happen on the weekends, and DFS is every single moment of you got to be Johnny on the spot. That's That's incredible, man, because, listen, I know that the listenership of this podcast is a little bit more heavily invested in the season-long stuff, but I know at least some of you guys are DFSers. You got to check out DFS Today, Hoopball DFS Today podcast. Coach and Micah Patri are hosting this thing, and apparently it's going. I thought you guys were going daily starting in like 2.5, 3 weeks. They're going daily starting at the end of this week. That's madness, dude. So you guys are recording. What's the timeline for this show for people that want to tune in? You guys are putting it out. When did the shows come out? How does that relate to lines and stuff like that?
Well, the cool thing is, we're going to be the first to market with this. So, we're going to do the show in the late evening the night before. So, we've seen the games from that evening. We've seen how everything's turned out. We're putting that show together, and then it'll go out first thing in the morning the next day, so that if you're on your way to work and you want to listen to that breakdown of games, if you're on your lunch break throughout your day, you can start building your lineups or thinking about it and going from there. And then, we have such a great tool with Hoopball with all of our feeds through hoop-ball.com and through Twitter, all our blurbs about any updates that go on throughout the day, like if somebody gets ruled out or there's a restriction of minutes or something, that will be followed. And I'll also be available on Twitter, at Joe Sarvati throughout the day for any big news that breaks. But that's what we're most excited about is, you don't have to wait and try to be fighting through traffic or racing to get home to listen to a show that locks in a couple of minutes before everything goes live. You'll actually be able to listen to the show throughout the day and start thinking it through and building your team.
It's stellar. I'm so excited for you guys. You must be so amped up right now, more than usual even.
You know what? I am, as you can tell. I know I've been hitting you with a bunch of my Bitmojis and all my harassment tools to say, to keep on you. You know how it goes.
Yeah,
man.
I believe. Did you? I wasn't a huge fan of the show, but did you watch the American version of The Office?
I did, yes.
So you're woofting me or whatever that, right?
I'm
Wasn't
woofting you.
Yeah,
yes,
I got
exactly right, man.
I woofed.
I'm just so glad you're a good sport. I really appreciate it. But I wanted to mention one more thing too. I know you have such a fantastic group of listeners, a ton of listeners, and don't be, if you haven't done DFS or even if you're not planning on doing DFS, listen into the show because what we're talking about is going to be very key, even though we're focused on DFS, to preparing your lineups, for your head-to-head teams, for the lineups you have to lock in per week. We're going to be talking about the real down deep stuff, coaching tendencies, pace of play, defensive matchups. And so it's going to have a direct correlation to help you be successful on all the year-long dynasty head-to-head leagues. And I play all those myself. So, yeah, there'll be, that there's a place for everybody on our show, no doubt.
What's the first game on Friday? Who's playing?
It is the Houston Rockets are playing the Clippers. So there you go. That's the first game.
Oh boy. All right, yeah. give me a little tease here. Do we even know who's going to be in the ball game yet?
Well, I can tell you this much, right off the bat is Westbrook is not going to play.
Okay.
So, for anybody that's, doesn't follow it that closely or looking to, throw in a lineup, he's still the second highest priced guard on the board, but he is, they've already said, based on the interview that D'Antoni did yesterday, that he's going to sit out the first 2 or 3 games because he had a little procedure on both knees in the off season and he's fine, but they want to bring him along slow. So, what's so cool about this, Dan, and I think you'll love this, and I want to get you a bankroll so you get invested in the DFS side too, is really the pricing in the preseason, like with this game Friday, it's really doesn't matter. It's nonsensical because the expensive guys like the Westbrooks and those that aren't going to play really eliminate. So you can pick out the guys that are going to get big minutes that are cheap, and this pretty much make any lineup you want that you think's a winning lineup, not even have to worry about price. So that's really cool. I'll give you one name as a teaser since we announced the DFS show. I like Caldwell Pope playing in a game coming up this weekend. I think Caldwell Pope on the Saturday card, he's trying to fight for position and minutes, and they're going to give him some extra time based on the interview that I saw with the coach. And I think that's a kind of guy at a real cheap price, like he's at 3,700 mark, that could be a super high score just based on the money equals minutes deal.
Go check out DFS Today, the Hoopball DFS Today podcast. Coach and Mike Apotria, lead hosts. We're gonna have you guys will have some guests. You'll have some co-hosts. It's gonna be incredible. And apparently, you lunatics are going 7 days a week starting at the end of this week. Coach, good luck to you. I hope you're not dead at the end of this.
No, man. This is like infusing life. The old coach getting the adrenaline. Plus, I got youngster Mike Apotria, who's a shark, man. He's an awesome DFS guy, and he keeps me on my toes. So we're excited, man. As you know, we want to make Hoopball the one-stop shop for anything to do NBA, from A to Z and Z to A, and this is a big step. And I want to thank you for all your support and help get this off the ground as well. And especially really excited that we're partnering with Fantasy Draft for the whole season.
Yep. Go get that rake-free DFS over at Fantasy Draft when the games begin in a little under 3 weeks. At Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. You can follow him so you can get all those podcasts as they come out. And as you mentioned, at Hoopball Fantasy is the other stop for all the breaking news as well. Joe, woof, man, I feel overwhelmed. If you guys, by the way, if you guys don't know Coach, he runs at about 11 all the time. So Excited Coach is like a 14.5 out of 10. You're we're gonna need to seal your head so it doesn't pop off your neck during all of this.
No, it's already oozing out, man. It's ready.
Gross.
It is ready, brother.
Well, that's disgusting.
Got a bald head, so it just oozes very slowly.
Yeah, that is absolutely delightful. That's what I'm going to leave everybody with here. Coach,
there you go. There's a picture for you.
Can I get you back here once a week just to give us an update on what's going on the DFS front?
I would love to, but I'm still waiting for that little intro, Earth, Wind, and Fire, BG, something,
I do need to get you a little Earth, Wind, and Fire. Everybody.
I need something to get me going, dude.
Let's be honest, man. Everybody needs a little Earth, Wind, and Fire in their life.
That's right.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Coach.
Man. It is September. No, it's not. It's October.
No, it's October, which is good because that's probably my least favorite of their songs, which is amazing. Go listen to something else that they did, everybody out there. Don't just listen to the one song you hear at weddings. At Joe Sarvadi. Coach, we'll talk to you in a week.
Thanks, brother.
Wrapping up quick here. Thanks to Coach. Thanks to Alex Rikleen. This is another fantastic and also slightly longer than usual edition of Fantasy NBA Today. That's just the way it is right now. So you guys are going to have to deal with that. I apologize. You know what? We have a lot of things we need to talk about, and so that's just how it's going to be. Once again, Coach is at Joe Sarvadi on Twitter. Alex is at Rikleen, Rikleen on Twitter. Give them each a follow. I am at Dan Besbris. If you want to bug me with questions, I would be happy to answer them. If you want to hit me up about the recruitment process, I would love to chat with you more about that. Again, social media, the easiest way to find me post-podcast. I'd love to try to do a thing here where we get more conversations going after the show, but there's so many other things happening right now that, if you want to do that too, awesome. Tomorrow, we'll wrap up the week here on Fantasy NBA Today. We'll have our final pro of the week. That will be Matt Smith for tomorrow's show from Basketball Monster. We will also talk to Adrian Benjamins, I believe, very briefly to get some eyes on the ground, and that'll take us through into the weekend. Thanks again for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.